it's Scott. ROCKFILE back with another podcast review. Going to talk about a Blu-ray I picked up at a used store. It's The Who at Kilburn, 1977. This is a Blu-ray of 2 concerts and some extras that came out back in 2008, and I had no idea. No idea about it at all. I stopped by. We have a used video game movie store here in Kenai, Alaska. It's actually in Soldotna. Zero's Trading has a Laserdisc section. They've got old video games. They've got newer video games. They've got a lot of DVDs, some Blu-rays, and even some 4Ks. And every once in a while I stop by, and they're having a buy 2, get 1 free sale. Well, when I stopped by the other day, I found 2 movies that were out of print and another one that I needed. Each were $5.99, and buy 2, get 1 free. I got all 3 movies for $12. You can't buy this Who concert right now. I'm sorry I'm doing a review of it when you probably really want it after I'm done with it. You're going to pay about $40-50 at least on eBay or a third-party seller because it's hard to find these things. Now, this is ripe for like a 4K restoration, but I have no idea about that. I've not read anything, but let me tell you about this thing. So I looked it up when I'm standing in the store. I usually use blu-ray.com to look up movies, and they gave it a high, like 4 out of 5. Said great video, great sound, rare performances. If you're a fan, you should pick this up. Now, I'm a Who fan, but I'm not a diehard fan. Like they have, Who's Next is one of the greatest albums ever recorded. Tommy Quadrophenia, great concept albums, but I don't listen to the Who regularly. I play them professionally because we play a lot of Who and rock and classic rock. I've seen them a couple times. But all in all, you know, I'm more Yes, Rush, more complicated things. But to me, The Who is one of the quintessential rock bands with Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones that came out in the 60s and stayed relevant in the 70s and 80s and on forth. So anyway, I'm a fan. I own most of their stuff. I don't listen to them regularly, but I am a fan. I got into Pete Townsend really heavily for a few years and got into his solo stuff and everything else. So let me tell you this with a grain of salt. As a marginal fan who owns most of their stuff, I think this is a treasure trove. This is invaluable. I will never give up this Blu-ray. I didn't want to oversell it, but like I said, I'm not the biggest Who fan. This is freaking amazing. If any of my favorite bands put out something like this, I would have to have it. So if you're a bigger Who fan than me, find this. Pay whatever it's worth. You get 2 full shows that are a little over an hour apiece. You get the Kilburn show in 1977. The show was filmed with 6 professional cameras, 35mm film, and 16-track stereo sound. Unheard of almost at the time. It was their first live performance ever of Who Are You, and their last live performance of that song with Keith Moon on stage. It was the second to last performance of Keith Moon. It was filmed for The Kids Are All Right, but only a little bit of it was ever used in that movie. So this is a concert that sat on a shelf for over 30 years. Now, fully digitally restored. Now, like I said, this is ripe for one of those, like they did for the NXS concert video, to like fully restore the 35mm film in 4K. That hasn't happened yet. It's very grainy, but it has been like restored, just not fully remastered. Let's put it that way. It looks good. It looks like a grainy film, but the performance is captured. Like they're not having a perfect night that night, and you can tell. And every time they make a mistake, you can see them double down on doing it better going forward. You can see Pete Townsend, like something doesn't go right and he winces, but then he just gets angry and he just does more. This is what I look for in rock. Rock is supposed to be a little bit dangerous. Rock is supposed to be a little hard to play. Rock is supposed to be like, these guys may not make it through this show. The Who was always that. And Daughtry's on. His voice sounds great. He looks great. He is throwing that microphone around. All of them are acting like they're the only person on stage. Entwistle's a little mellow as he always was, but when it comes time for him to hit one of those killer bass runs or sing My Wife or whatever, he's right on it, you know? And Keith Moon is Keith Moon. He's having a blast back there. The show was amazing. It's a lot of older stuff. They don't delve into much of the 70s stuff, but like I said, it has the first performance of Who Are You? Then there's a second show, which was filmed in December of 1969 on 16mm film with multi-track sound. It also looks fantastic, given that it was filmed a stage show. It wasn't lit for a concert like the first concert is. It was lit, you know, like you were there in the audience. So there's some things that are dark and some things that are not always perfectly lit, but it's another over hour-long show that's very raw, that's very them just playing. 1969, No technology. It's them, four guys with musical instruments. That's it. And The Who have always been a band that live give 110%. So that's not all. The two concerts are the main meat and potatoes of this Blu-ray. But let's go further. It turns out that the versions of Tommy and a quick one that were in the Kilburn concert were heavily edited. So they've included in the extras the full Tommy and the full quick one. It's over an hour long. So that's another full concert performance of the entire Tommy rock opera, which was something they did a little bit live back in those days. There's also a couple extra short things and the movie trailer. I got to say, I paid $5.99 for this, less if you do the math on the deal, about $4 for it. Invaluable. And I'm not even the biggest Who fan. This is something I'm going to pull out when we're talking about bands and how great bands used to be. Now, remember, The Who came out in the 60s, so the 1977 portion of the show, they're at the end of that young man's stuff. Pete Townsend is giving it his all. He's doing the duck walk and throwing his arm around. And like I said, all of them were acting like they were in the late 60s, but here we are in the late 70s, and they're, towards the tail end of that and still partying pretty hard. And this is the second to last performance of Keith Moon. I mean, that right there gives you a reason to own this in your collection. It's the first time they ever performed Who Are You? Like I said, there are a couple, not outright mistakes, but things that just don't go perfectly. And you can see the looks on their faces to see them double down on, we're not going to mess that up again. We're not going to do, it's a very impressive show. I would love to see some kind of 4K restoration. Image, the company that released this, and it's now out of print, they're the company who did the massive restoration on NXS, Live Baby Live, or Live Baby Live, whatever it is. So hopefully that can happen for this. But if not, search out this Blu-ray. If you are a Who fan, this has to be in your collection, without a doubt. And as a fan of rock and roll and music in general, and music of the 60s and 70s, I think you have to own it in your collection as well. The Who at Kilburn, 1977. What a major surprise. I found it in a used Blu-ray store. You should be so lucky. It's one of my favorite concert discs of all of the hundreds that I own. It's really great. I couldn't give it a higher review. I would love a 4K restoration. Scott, I'm ROCKFILE. Have a great holiday season. I hope you are well. Hope you and the family are doing great. Thank you for listening to podcasts. I think it's a wonderful thing in modern times. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.